What do you get when you take two of the best games of all time and smash them all up together? Yep, it's Simon's Destiny, a free downloadable game developed by Andrea Gori. Sorry if I butchered the pronunciation on that one, chum. It's Castlevania, right? Doomavania, because people like to mash words all up together to describe things. It's super-tacular. As I've said before in a previous review, that first Castlevania is at the top of my list when it comes to games, and this guy has delivered an excellent way of experiencing it in a brand new way here. Simon's Destiny follows the same basic structure of that 8-bit classic. As the legendary Simon Belmont, you're tasked with having to travel through the titular Castlevania in order to face and destroy the evil Count Dracula. Conceptually, the stages are all the same. You'll make your way through the 6 NES levels, but they are rearranged to make them fit into this 3D realm from the first-person perspective. All in all, it translates pretty well, but if you're anything like me, you'll need a few minutes to adjust to the whip's limited reach and the breakneck speed of your Doom movements, your Doomvaments, if you prefer. This quick-paced action works well for Doom and other bullet-based shooters, but Simon primarily uses a melee weapon, so it's a little tricky to adjust to, at least at first. There are tons of candelabras to smash up, so don't be shy, cause you're gonna need those hearts for sub-weapon ammo. The knife and the cross will quickly become your greatest allies against Dracula's many minions, since they offer up a bit of range to your attacks. All of the sub-weapons are here, of course, but I tend to prefer these two weapons for their straight projectile shots. The axe is pretty strong, but even after all of these years and a bunch of different playthroughs, I still can't get used to the arc it flies in when tossed. Normally it results in me wishing that I hadn't picked it up at all, though I'm sure this thing is a real beast in more capable hands. Similarly to the NES original, you will be stuck if you grab a weapon you don't dig, so you'll need to be very careful. What's nice is that the candelabras that contain power-ups are distinguishable, similar to bloodlines on the Sega hardware, so it's kinda your fault if you wind up with a weapon you don't want for a particular area. A few of these projectiles will ricochet off of surfaces, which is a cool touch, but the double and triple shot slates, or plaques, or whatever you want to call them, aren't here. I'm fine that they are missing, but I think it would have been a cool inclusion if you could, say, buff your sub-weapon with each new pickup of the same type, similarly to Legacy of Darkness on the N64. Meaning, if you had the axe, for instance, and picked up another axe, it could have been quicker, wider, or just more powerful overall. The weapons all work well for the most part, but the hitboxes can be a tad too unforgiving. Also, there were times that I was certain my whip was connecting, but it wasn't registering. This happened frequently enough with aerial enemies to be a bit of an annoyance, so yeah, a wider or bigger hitbox would have been nice. The whip upgrades are all here, but I always felt like I was completely powered up. This is more of an observation than a complaint, since the game is pretty challenging at times. Wall meets are here as well, and hidden beneath darker brick formations, so you'll get a bit of a hint as to where they are, but you'll still kinda need to have your eyes peeled. They are doled out perfectly throughout this 2 or so hour journey, and I mean Every single time I was hurting for life, there was a replenishing chicken close by. That's a testament to just how well this game was designed. Castlevania is inherently a much more vertical game, since it is a platformer, so you're going to need to master jumping. Instant death pits are everywhere, and the surfaces you will need to land on are pretty small, so some practice might be needed. That said, once the jumping clicks, it sticks, and it becomes second nature. The platforming took me a few minutes to adjust to, but the first stage does a great job introducing this in a few safe sequences, before the training wheels come off and you get your first death pit. Overall, the game does a stellar job ramping up the difficulty from set piece to set piece, stage to stage, cheek to cheek. The difficulty is perfect with bosses that gradually get more challenging as well. Speaking of the big bads, they're of course all here in glorious 3D. Some of the new designs are pretty clever too, including this Medusa arena where she's surrounded by her frozen victims. A nice touch. A few of the character designs and sound effects have been borrowed from other titles in the series, and there are some brief moments of dialogue tossed in as well. The game sounds really good overall, with crystal clear audio effects stripped straight from the official games and a soundtrack made up of covers. I'm a huge fan of metal music, but heavy guitars aren't necessarily what I want in my Castlevania games, unless they're mixed well. Michiru Yamane did a great job incorporating them into her themes in Symphony of the Night, but here, Simon's Destiny, I kinda wish Gori would have opted for a few more nuanced pieces. Each of the game's tracks were handled by different people, and most of them work really well, but personally, the heavier ones become a bit too distracting, and the compositions are short, due to them being re-envisioned NES pieces, so they start to lose their impact when you're playing through levels that are much longer than those originals. This is purely subjective and doesn't take away from the game, obviously, and like I said, most of the tracks fit well, and all of them sound great, so I guess we can just chalk this up to being a bit of a nitpick. What I dig is that each heavy tune is followed by a mellower piece, so it's all planned out quite well. I don't know, maybe I'm just being an ass, because I enjoy listening to all of these tracks on their own, outside of the game, and I really like the Out of Time cover that plays throughout the last stage. It's a lot less frantic than its 8-bit original, which works for the lengthier level. The remakes of Stalker and Walking on the Edge are really great as well, and fit the Doom-like atmospheres. The Atmosphere Doomivanias. As one might imagine with a game based in this engine, there are a ton of customizable control options. You can opt for that classic Doom style, use a mouse, or connect a controller. It's all very intuitive and easy to configure. I found that I needed to adjust the brightness a bit since a lot of the visuals were a tad too dark, resulting in hard to see platforms, but your results will vary depending on your monitor. Wow, what an obvious thing to point out. The game looks, it looks really great, with some nice textures, fog, water effects, and character details. I really like that Batandi retains that classic quality, where you can see the whole castle from certain perspectives, and the additions to each stage work very well, conceptually as well as architecturally. The levels I enjoy the most are the denser ones. They are well designed, with key collecting and a bit of backtracking incorporated. I'm a big fan of how tight they are and how they loop around. There are some straightforward linear sections as well, so this game keeps things as varied as it can. A map can be displayed at any time, but I never used it. The stages can get a bit maze-like, but they're so well designed that you'll never get lost, and they are all the perfect length. They're not too short, but they also don't drag on. Most of the enemies translate pretty well to the 3D realm, even if the majority of them are just reskins of the Doom imps. I've gotta say, I really like how the Medusa heads were handled. Just a special little note I wanted to add. They fly in patterns that are damn fun to dodge. For the most part, the enemies are well designed and placed. Instead of the black leopards, we get Wolfenstein pooches, and everything else gets introduced at the same point they do in the NES one. Almost beat for beat, cheek to cheek. Like the 8-bit original, the flying foes are going to make you want to rip your hair out and kick a stranger's kid at the park, but that's all part of the fun, I guess. I've got to say, from beginning to end, this is as close to a perfect 3D Castlevania translation as you'll ever play. I feel like I can say that with some level of authority, since it is one of my favorite games. Andrea Gori has shown his talent in translating this classic action masterpiece into the 3D realm. Honestly, I feel the same way playing this that I do playing that. It requires you to learn the levels, plan a strategy, and have the necessary equipment in order to take out each of the bosses. I'm not going to spoil the ending because I think everyone should play this thing. Now, how's about we close this review out with a comparison? Oh, there'll be music too. Castlevania Doom. Simon's Destiny. It's the hellspawn bastard baby y'all should be playing because it's a damn near perfect first-person alternative to one of the greatest games ever made.